All right. So what are we talking about today?
I saw a short that you posted on your channel a couple of days ago where a guy was talking about how like humans are naturally herbivores, and I just kind of wanted to talk about that because it doesn't really pan out scientifically to me.
Okay. What is your take on what was wrong about what he said or about why we are not herbivores?
Have you ever heard of this weird little subgroup of people called vegan cat owners? Have you ever seen this?
No.
Okay, so that was a big thing on Twitter a few years ago. People were like, "My cat's not a carnivore. I can feed it lettuce and it'll live forever. Like it'll be healthy." And
Yikes.
they die after like 2 years
I would imagine, yeah.
because generally animals that are only herbivorous or only carnivorous can't properly take in like nutrients from the opposite of their diet. There's
For
also
sure.
the matter of teeth, right? Teeth evolve with purpose. So
Hmm.
even dinosaurs, if you look at herbivorous dinosaurs, they have egg-shaped teeth.
Hmm.
Carnivorous dinosaurs have very pointed, sharp teeth, and then
Hmm.
there's omnivorous ones, just like bears and things like that, that have a mix of the two. And
Hmm.
that's what we have. We have molars in the back that are
Hmm.
for crushing up plant matter and whatnot. We have sharp teeth in the front that are meant for cutting up meat and tearing
Gotcha.
things.
Okay. So,
Primates are largely omnivorous as well.
see, that's where I'll disagree with you. Okay, so I think humans create words, so we can do whatever we want. The term I'm familiar with for what most primates are is called frugivore, and it's similar to herbivore, but it points out that they focus on fruit. So like chimpanzees are probably one of the closest things to us. They have the four canines, everything else is flat,
Mm-hmm.
but their canines are humongous. But anyways, they eat 75% fruit, and I believe it's almost always figs, which is cool because I love figs. But they
They
eat
also hunt monkeys.
they yeah, there's a little bit of that. But they
Baboons actually, or it's either chimps or baboons. They train dogs in the wild to
Yeah, I heard about that. Maybe I heard about that from you.
hunt.
But anyways, so like 75% of their entire diet is just straight up raw fruit. They also a big thing they do is they take rocks to use as tools to bust open nuts. They eat nuts. I know in zoos they're really into lettuce. I don't know how much they find that in their natural habitat, but I'm pretty sure they get an element of nutrients from some greens, nuts, and mostly fruit. And then like less than 1% of their diet is meat protein related, in a sense where they put like a stick
Mhm.
inside of a hole where termites jump on it and then they eat the termites. I've heard there's little things here and there about certain monkeys eating certain monkeys. I'm pretty sure that that is not considered your average, at least chimp. And if it happens, it's such a rare case. It would be like a
Well,
human getting a deer once a year or something like that.
so let's go a different route then, because
Okay.
it is true they are largely herbivores. Let's look at pigs, bears, right? Those are two
Okay.
big examples. They have similar teeth to ours, and they eat a similar diet. Lots
Hmm.
of meat, lots of vegetables, lots of roots, right? Bears
Yeah.
will hyperload on moss and fruit when it's time to hibernate. That's the big difference between them and us. But
Hmm.
boars will eat anything. Like they'll eat
Yeah.
anything but hair and teeth, right? That's why people like who murder people often own pigs because they'll eat bodies, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Omnivorous animals are pretty common in nature, and we found a pretty strong link between their teeth and ours. But the big divider to me is that, like, in a strong way, animals that are only herbivorous or only carnivorous, they don't properly process. They don't make the enzymes required to properly process meat or vegetables either way. So
Mm.
they don't really divine a lot of nutritional value. So like a cow, right? Like mad cow disease happened because people were feeding beef to cows to try to like make them beefier, and they
Hmm.
don't properly process that. Eventually, it causes like a prion in their brain, and they go nuts.
Mm.
And humans, that's called Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease. It's when humans eat other humans. It drives you literally crazy. It eats holes in your brain. But
Interesting. Yeah.
that's yeah, that's neither here nor there. But just an interesting fact.
Hmm.
With omnivorous animals, you'll find that they naturally will kind of gravitate towards hunting and they'll eat vegetables and things like that because they're easier to find and more plentiful. But they still have to have meat in their diet somewhere. Like if you try to
Mhm.
feed a bear beans to get their protein, it's not going to work right because they don't properly process legumes like we do. But if you
Gotcha.
feed it deer, it will. It's
Gotcha.
and we've like humans have taught wolves how to help them hunt. We've been hunting our entire existence, like
Mhm.
naturally from the old world monkeys that we evolved from.
Gotcha. Well, here, let me throw an idea at you. Let's say we conducted an experiment where we put a bunch of humans on an island, or not necessarily an island. You don't have to picture sand or anything, but they're secluded. And we put a bunch of different animals there too. Let's say we have rabbits and chickens and whatever. All those are there. And we have it's in an area where you can grow abundance of fruit and veggies and all these different things. Now, let's say somehow this study is conducted where we make it to where they're not allowed to cook the meat. They can't, they can figure out whatever. I don't even, it doesn't even matter if we give them guns, whatever. They just cannot cook or turn meat into jerky or anything like that. How long do you think it would take? Well, do you think, I wonder if eating all the fruits and veggies and grains and beans and everything, if I wonder if at any point, unless they were starving, they would ever say, we are going to kill this animal and eat it raw. I don't know.
Well, when you kill animals in the wild, like a weird misconception that a lot of people have because we've lived with grocery stores for 100 years now, is
Yeah.
that you can't eat meat raw. And the reason for that
Hmm.
is simple. When you buy meat off the shelf, it can carry salmonella and a bunch of other things simply because it's been sitting in a package for a long time. It
Okay.
allows for bacterial growth. So if you kill a boar, you might get tapeworms, but you might not. You can eat it raw. If you kill a deer, you can do the same thing. It's not as dangerous. You probably
Hmm.
shouldn't. Like you can eat like undercooked poultry if it's freshly killed because it won't carry salmonella because it's not been sitting in a package for a while.
Hmm.
The thing is that like one of the things that I've heard posed by evolutionary biologists is that one of the things that allowed us to evolve the way we did was that we learned how to cook because it
Hmm.
changes the way proteins are handled and it changes the way that we process the food and it made it so that we could accelerate
Okay, well,
biological
let me pause you real quick because I do want to focus on the raw thing for a sec. So, do you happen to know? And I don't know. So this is all. There's plenty to learn. I'll definitely research some of this. But do you happen to know if most animals that do eat meat, if they get the worms and the meat is what caused their death? Like bears, do a handful of them, this maybe the same percentage that would happen to humans when they eat raw fish or whatever. Um, do they, I guess you wouldn't get a tapeworm from raw fish probably, but if they caught a rabbit or
It
something
depends on the fish.
yeah. So if a bear ate a boar, um do they have just as likely a chance of getting like tapeworms and dying like humans would, or what? Do they have something that
I
breaks
think
down that more?
so. So every animal, as far as I'm aware, every animal in their immune system, you have specialized cells. You have white blood cells that kill bacteria, and then you have, I think it might be leukocytes. They specifically attack parasites.
Hmm.
We don't have as strong a parasitic response as a lot of other animals because we've removed ourselves from the evolutionary chain for so long
Okay.
that we've kind of lost the need for it, from what I understand. Other animals, a lot of times when they get worms, they just kind of run rampant because parasites have evolved to be that way. Like there's something like there's a massive majority of the creatures on the planet are parasites. So chances
Mm-hmm.
are they're going to get worms. That's part of the reason why we do cook our meats just to be safe. But
Okay.
if they
Okay.
do get them, I think they might fight them off better.
Okay. Well, I know there's also some kind of there. I watched this show on it. Maybe it was just an episode of a cooking show, but there's some kind of movement towards eating insects. And I don't know if that's more of an environmental
Mm-hmm.
thing to cut back on meat and whatnot
Well,
because it's.
insects have been considered delicacies in a lot of countries for a
Mhm.
long time. Like
D-
roasted mayflies taste like roasted almonds.
Do you happen to know if not roasted, if insects would be likely to carry diseases for humans if they ate the insects?
I don't think so. So like the way diseases work is widely misunderstood. So a lot of the things that can infect bugs or dogs or birds can't affect us because everything that infects something is kind of tailored to that.
Yeah.
Like cat fleas can't get on dogs.
Oh,
Dog fleas
interesting.
don't get on cats. They have
Okay.
different shapes in their mouths and they're shaped differently.
Okay.
So let's see. Restate the question. I forgot a little bit what I was going to say.
Oh, no, you answered the question, but then you just started talking
Okay.
about how infections work or how viruses work.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. So if you started eating bugs raw, there's a really low chance that something bad would happen because
okay,
we've been eating bugs raw for a long
for sure. Well, and so that's the thing. Not that I'm claiming right now I'm in favor of eating bugs, but it's so far down on my list I don't really care. That my guess is that we are somewhat like chimps. My guess is that our bodies are somewhat designed
time.
that
We
if
are
we,
primates, so that's
yeah.
a good
So
idea.
I just mean, so if we didn't have processed food, if we didn't have all the junk making us sick, like the processed, like all the stuff where you take wheat and you take out the bran and you just have like the white that you make white bread, white pasta, all this junk, all the pizza, everything. If you just like strip down everything man-made about food, even if you have the element of cooking, let's say you remove all the hormones and all the junk that would be in meat, so you have a hormone-free grass-fed beef, you just have all these meats that are not processed, and then you have all these fruits and veggies that are not processed and all these different things. I think our ideal diet, in the same sense that cats should eat 100% carnivore, 100%
Mhm.
lions, 100% carnivore, and all these different things. There's a lot of herbivores that are strictly herbivores, and they don't focus on fruit. They just focus on plant life, like eating grass and similar things. And then so frugivores, I think we are likely, that's our ideal diet. We're about 75%. We should probably be eating raw fruit. And then we should also be
Mm,
eating, well, hold on, let me finish real quick. We should also be eating nuts. And then be there, just because we're not designed to eat something doesn't mean we shouldn't. So something like, there's a lot of studies showing that taking beans and cooking them, because cooking is what I mean by like not so natural. You can't eat beans unless they're cooked, but there's so many studies that show that beans are healthy for you. So yes, doing
mhm.
these human type things like cooking something and not processing it, I'm sure we get a lot of benefit out of something like that. I know sweet potatoes are thought of as one of the healthiest things for tribes that have never had processed food. They live the longest eating sweet potatoes. And then I think if we didn't,
Isn't that weird? Because
Mhm.
sweet potato plants are poisonous, but the sweet potatoes themselves aren't. Isn't
Right?
that
Yeah,
strange?
yeah, it's weird. Um,
Potatoes and tomatoes are nightshade. That's why the plants
mhm.
are dangerous to eat.
Yeah, yeah. But real quick, so I wouldn't be shocked if humans doing a natural thing did something like monkeys where
Whoa,
they ate bugs.
you
Where
froze, Carson.
oh, did it? I did or you did? I see you frozen, but I don't know if I froze, but I can hear you. So as long as you can hear me, that's good.
Mm.
Um,
All right,
but
I can hear you now, but your video is a little frozen. There it
oh, there you
goes.
go. Oh, okay.
You froze for a minute.
I think I looked froze to you while you looked froze to me. Um, but anyways,
It's getting choppy.
oh,
Hold on. Let me
mine looks
see.
good to me.
I
So
think
I
let me
think in the
turn this
final
off. That
video,
might
it's
help the
just
connection.
okay.
Ah, damn.
Okay. Either way, I can just talk without you being seen if you're cool with that, or there we go. I see a box. Okay, I'll just finish saying what I'm saying while you're setting it up. But I think humans, if they didn't care about insect death, would probably, if they weren't allowed to cook meat, they would probably do the insect thing and eat them if their body was craving that nutrition. And then one last thing, most primates eat some of their own feces to get some B12 in them, and we used to get humans used to get all the B12 they needed from water. It was in the water because we would just drink it from fresh streams. But humans would also get a lot of cholera, and you'd die from cholera. So we figured out how to get healthy water by stripping out all the unhealthy parts, but it also removes stuff like B12. So there are elements of where you might need to make a supplement to supplement something that you'd normally get from the water. And so now cows don't get it from the water anymore. So cows don't have B12 in them. So in factory farms, before we kill the cows, they inject the cows with B12, then they kill them. So essentially they put B12 supplements in the meat that's packaged at the store. Anyway, sorry, I did not mean to branch off to that, so ignore that. But anyways, I think it's reasonable to think that we would eat almost identical to chimps if we were not allowed to cook
Well,
meat.
so nutritionists breaking down how we need to eat have found that overloading on one particular thing can be really dangerous. So overloading on fruits means you'll get way too much sugar, which could do a lot of damage to your pancreas. Overloading on nothing but vegetables can cause problems if you don't properly balance it. One thing that is a little strange is how much grain we eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the food pyramid, the bottom of it, the biggest tier is grains. And the reason for that isn't because grains are what you're supposed to eat most of your diet of. It's that when it was being made, there were a bunch of lobbyists trying to fight to make their lobby the biggest one, and grain won. That's why
Yeah.
the food pyramid has such a giant portion for grains compared to meats and vegetables and fruit.
Yeah. I think they
So
changed it. It used to
it's
be food
we need
pyramid, but
to
now it's called My
now it's
Plate or
my
something.
plate. Yeah,
Yeah.
my plate is still a little unbalanced, but it's not nearly as bad as the food pyramid
Mm-hmm.
was. But you should have the way it works is that you should have a pretty healthy balance of lipids and fats and sugars, meat, fruits, where you should get most of your sugar, and vegetables. And then you should have a little bit of grains for the fiber, because that's important. So the our bodies aren't really built to be like highly specific things. We have a very broad range of food that we're supposed to eat to try to maintain health. That's part of the reason why it's an easy like line to draw that we're omnivores, because we
Mm-hmm.
need a pretty broad range of foods. People who specifically eat a lot of fruit, it turns out, get way too much sugar. And a lot of those people can be prone to diabetes. They can
Mm-hmm.
have pancreatic issues. If enough damage is done, it can put them at a higher risk of pancreatic cancer. So we have to try to level that out. Part of the reason for that, honestly, is probably because of how long we live. Chimps don't
Mm-hmm.
live quite as long as we do, so they don't have as long to take the damage from the sugar. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's why they can be frugivores. Maybe it's that their
Mm-hmm.
systems are built differently.
Yeah.
Like most
Well, here, let
herbivores
me.
have multiple stomachs, so that's why they can eat grass, because they reprocess it a whole bunch of times.
Well, so cows do, which are herbivores. I don't know
I believe
if
deer.
primates do, but I'd be curious to look into primates. Um, one thing that's interesting, the guy in the video you watched made a comment about humans sweating through their pores, and then I've had people ask me, are there other things that sweat through their pores? And it's actually all primates do, and then horses. I don't know if we're
Horses do.
close.
Yeah, I
I don't
was
know
about
if
to
we're
say
close
that.
to
Yeah.
horses, but that's pretty wild. But
I mean, we're genetically close to most things. Like we have something like 75% common with tomatoes. So like,
um,
we're
oh,
kind of broadly, yeah.
yeah. So I personally think that you're wrong about most of the things you said about fruit, but I don't really want to debate that with you because I can send you some studies I have, and that's kind of the issue with studies is there's so many of them and people have the different ones they pick and choose from. But I'm not saying you're picking bad ones and I'm picking good
Oh,
ones. Maybe
I'm not basing
you're
that
fine.
off of studies I read. My mom is an RN, so I get in
Okay.
touch with a lot of doctors, and I've
Sure.
spoken to nutritionists because I used to be
Yeah.
an all-state wrestler, so I had to
Sure.
know how to balance my diet.
Yeah, and so it's complicated. I mean, I'm under the impression by the studies that I've seen and but anyways, it's too complicated to go that route other than sending information and then maybe learning different ways to rigorously look at studies and go, okay, this one's funded by this group, so we're putting this one out.
Once I get a
Okay, this one.
computer, it'll be easier for us to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to set that aside for a second. But you were listing, we were talking about food pyramid and then going to my plate. What I'm curious about is if in a hypothetical world, whether it was a hypothetical area or the whole earth, if we said, okay, humans do not cook anything, what would we eat? And that's where my guess is we would do something like chimps, where chimps easily, they're so freaking strong. They could go
Oh
and
yeah.
find an animal, and like any of the ones that we eat, they could find like,
Mhm.
and I don't mean we, I don't eat animals, but
Yeah.
they could find rabbits, they could find chickens, whatever. They can rip them in half and they can eat their flesh. They don't. And I'm just wondering if naturally
Well,
we would
they do with a
gravitate.
lot of animals, actually.
I don't think
We
that's
have them
true,
on
but
video. I mean, there's videos of them doing that with like baby monkeys and shit like that.
I'm not surprised if there are rare situations where they do things maybe for the sake of the violence of it. I don't know. I'm open to looking at anything. What I'm saying is their diet, less than 1% of their diet is anything animal based, and that's almost all insects. So I'm just saying that I'm pretty sure, my guess is, if we didn't add that element of learning how to cook, which I'm not saying that I'm not appealing to nature to we shouldn't be cooking. If we figure out
Yeah.
techniques to do things better, let's do it. But I am saying I wonder if we are naturally frugivores, if unlike them where they do less than 1% is insects and then a couple ripping small monkeys apart, like would we naturally eat some insects but then like 10% of raw fish and bunnies and deer? Or do you think we'd be more like just eating insects? And it's just a guessing game right now, but
I'd say that chances are it depends on region more than anything.
okay.
Like in regions where they eat a lot of bugs, it's because there's not a lot of herbivorous animals, and it's a lot
Okay.
harder to hunt predators. Plus, you get a lot less back energy wise from predators than you do from prey.
Yeah.
There's a thing that you learn about in like I think ninth grade biology in Texas. It's called the energy pyramid. So it
Hmm.
starts out with the sun, and then you've got grass, herbivores, like small predator birds, and then things that eat predators. And
Hmm.
the reason it gets smaller as it goes up is because you get less and less of that original like output back
Hmm.
as you go up that chain. So places that have a ton of predators and like say like gazelles are hard to hunt. So there are tribes that hunt a gazelle and that lasts them a week, but they eat a lot of bugs because it's a lot of clean protein. You can eat it raw and not a lot will happen to you, or you can cook it and eat it. So like if you live somewhere like England, you're probably gonna eat a lot more deer than someone who lives in sub-Saharan Africa who's gonna eat mayflies.
Hmm.
You know, it's a lot of region specific thing. Plus,
Yeah.
there's people like up north for thousands of years, like in snowy climates, they've been fermenting and storing animal meat in the snow.
Hmm.
Like the Inuits do it with whales in Scandinavia. They do it with Greenland sharks, things like that.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Um, yeah. Yeah, no, it's tricky. It's one of those things that we
It's
are so far past the
part of the
time.
part of the thing is that there's too much variance with people. So, like for
Mhm.
example, white people evolved to drink milk. That's why a lot of white people are not lactose intolerant. But people who are black or Asian are a lot more likely to be lactose intolerant because they don't make lactase.
Mhm.
It's there's different pressures for different kinds of meat. There's evolutionary pressures. Like Native Americans don't handle alcohol the same way that white people do because we were making it for so long that we developed like a natural tolerance to it.
Gotcha.
It's
No, I
social
understand that,
pressures
but
account for a lot of
let me cut you off real quick. You would say that naturally humans are not designed to drink the milk of other animals, correct?
that. Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. I
We
mean,
did it
because
originally supplementally, and then we just started doing it.
yeah, you do it because we have the intelligence to be able to figure out things to do. Like humans shouldn't be eating Oreos, but we figured out how to create them. And we did that in a scientific way to be able to sell more based on how addictive we can make them. But
Yeah,
it
sugar.
doesn't mean that we should consume it. We are not doing good for our body when we do it. And I don't want to get too into like a health element, but I guess that is the entirety of what we're talking about because we're talking about what you're naturally supposed to be eating.
Yeah,
But yeah, so which is why I think there are plenty of people that are against dairy, even meat eaters, like a lot of the top most professional keto people that are very
mm,
focused on keto being a good thing to do. They will not touch dairy. They will
that
eat
is very
eggs
debatable.
and well,
Not that
okay.
they're against dairy, but like keto being a good thing. too. It's
Oh,
really
oh,
bad
oh,
for your kidneys if you do it wrong.
oh, for sure. I just mean like, I guess when it comes down to figuring out what's the best diet, I think one of the best things to do is to see what kind of everybody is saying. If you find all the vegetables that keto, paleo, and whole food vegan people say are all good, like I've never heard one of them say kale's bad for you or broccoli is bad for you. So then you can go, okay, the meat eaters and the not meat eaters are saying it. Let's do it. You because people have their differences, but every single one of them will say we shouldn't eat cake. Some people might say you should have
Yeah.
your cheat day or you should have this or that. But as far as what you consume, if you take everything one person, like 3 different of the biggest diets say to do, and then you pick out all the commonalities in all of them, like some might say don't overdo it on lots of fruit, but all of them will say berries are the healthiest thing out there. And kiwis are specifically something that keto and paleo and all them say to do. And so I think that's I think that's a good way to look at it. When people say, "Oh, I'm not going to diet because they all change," everybody says different things. At least if you're
Yeah,
going to
that's
eat,
when it comes to dieting, the best advice you can get is don't really pay attention to the big like buy this book and learn how to do this because a lot of those just come from the same industry.
yeah, well, and
Like that's
it
why
should,
every 3 months there's a new one. Like in the 80s or 90s, it was the Atkins diet. That's just all meat and grapefruit juice, and that's really bad for you.
yeah,
So
well,
that's
and
why
that's
I say
why,
like I talk to nutritionists, not like reading diets, because some diets are like caloric flux that are really bad for you. Some of them are carb cycling, which isn't very good for you because it puts your body in a weird state. So being in a constant state of ketosis can be really bad for you. So I just ended up talking to nutritionists when I was wrestling because it was the easiest way to get like a pretty unbiased, well, as unbiased as you can be, but a pretty unbiased view of how to diet.
mhm.
And a lot of them said, like, if you're going to be working out, you need a lot of protein, which you can get through these vegetables and this meat because meat has lipids and it changes the way that your body processes it.
Mhm.
That's like we process a lot of things that animals that don't eat a lot of meat don't. We have different
Yeah.
systems that they don't.
Well, so my focus, so like even when I love for people to go vegan if they think it works for them, but my focus is more so to take out the worst of the worst. So not related to vegan, I think people should just cut out processed garbage. I mean, that is related somewhat
Mm-hmm.
to vegan, but it also could just be
If you can
refined
afford to, then
breads.
yeah, you absolutely should.
Right? Yeah, if you can afford to. Well, and that's the thing, like if it's hard to afford eating this variety of amazing not so processed things,
Mm-hmm.
that you go to like white breads and white pastas and these things, you can swap all that out for something like brown rice. Now, but it's complicated. I don't want to get exactly into I do want to do some videos on healthy ways to eat on a budget because I
Mm-hmm.
am a very frugal person and I like to eat without spending much money at all. But anyways, like I like to tell people, hey, if you're going to eat meat, I know it's expensive, but if you can afford it, you should do grass-fed, hormone-free. Get away from all the hormones added, pumped into animals that have
Mm-hmm.
made all of our kids start puberty at 10 years old. Get all that out of there, and then maybe cut back a little bit. Do it, but eat half the amount of meat. Do it, but don't eat this. And if you truly only eat grass-fed, hormone-free, essentially all the factory farms are gone, and luckily a lot of people care about that. A lot of people want factory farms gone, but they
Mm-hmm.
are fine with an animal that's lived its life on a nice farm, being put down and feeding a bunch of people. And I'm not necessarily ethically fine with that, but I'm way more fine with that, so I say do it. So that's kind of my thing. I like to, if somebody feels like they need eggs, fine, okay. But if you don't feel like you need milk or cheese, then try to get away from it. And I don't know.
Yeah,
That's kind of how I do.
I just wouldn't want to get away from milk and cheese because I grew up cooking Italian. That's a big part of it. That's
Yeah.
just personal preference.
Well, I mean, if
Cheese is
you're,
an expensive thing that's not really all that necessary. So if you
Mhm.
don't need it, don't get it. But if you
Yeah.
like it and you can afford it, go for it. That's just kind of how we
Yeah.
look
Well, if your goal
at
is
it.
health, then maybe just figure out a way to cut back from it. For me, the best way to cut things out is to just have something where I go, I don't eat this anymore, or I eat this much in 1 week. So if you have a certain type of cheese, like I don't know what the favorite cheese is for like Italian stuff, but if you get one container of cheese
Mhm.
that like a shredded provolone or something, that
Parmesan is usually like the
Parmesan,
big one for, yeah.
yeah. Oh, you got a
It's
puppy
a
there.
hard cheese that stands up for a long time. Yeah, this is
Gotcha.
Sophie.
Oh, hello. So yeah, if you decide, okay, I want to cut back, but I love Parmesan, you could just say, I'm not going to buy any more dairy products, but I'm going to have Parmesan. I'm going to get one of these containers once a month or once a week or whatever. And
Mhm.
then you have to like ration it out and do whatever. And you can be like helping out your health, you get your taste buds, and you're cutting back on the industry because it's all about what's in demand. If half the world right now cut their cheese consumption in half, um, then the farms would milk half the amount of cows. And yeah, it's just so devastating having metal machines hooked up to cow udders and not caring about if there's like a sore on them and it's just pumping. And we just need to
Yeah.
do better. I don't like most vegans would say, oh, don't ever milk a cow, whatever. I would take more cows being milked by hand on a nice farm than the current
Part of
amount of
the
cows being
part of
milked if
the
you
the
remove that
issue
part.
with like the don't milk cows ever is we have bred cows to a point where we can't do that. Like
You,
cows
mhm,
can get really sick if they're not milked because of the way that we've like screwed with them. Like cows didn't used to be as big as they are, for example.
mhm,
We
yeah.
genetically like through breeding changed that.
Okay. I
So
will
like
keep an
it's like a
open.
sheep, right? If you don't shear a sheep,
Mhm,
the oils in its wool can kill it. Like it can do a lot
mhm.
of damage to its skin because of the way we bred them to overproduce wool.
Correct. So we have bred sheep to make the most wool. So unlike all sheep for all of human history that would just grow the amount they'd normally grow and be fine, there are some that are bred so much for their wool that if you don't, the wool will get so wild that it'll probably kill them and make them suffer. So that
Yeah,
is a
it can put
bummer.
chemical burns on their skin.
Mm. That is a bummer that we did that. But there are there are probably humane ways to counteract that, and especially we should probably not be breeding them in that way anymore. But really quick to say on the milk thing, and then I actually got to hop off here. But all mammals um create milk for their babies, and when it's time for them to stop, when the babies wean off the milk dries up. There's a little bit of pain
Mm-hmm.
process happens for humans too. If you take a cabbage leaf and put it on the boob, it helps the soreness. I don't know if that works for cows. But anyways, so there's this
Need
idea that
some
if
big ass cabbage leaves for
yeah,
that.
yeah, there's this idea that if you don't milk a cow, it'll hurt them. But like in nature, before us humans, they would just the milk sources would just dry up. Now, I've never heard that the way that we have bred them has affected the milk element. Maybe you could send me something. I just don't think that's true. But
Well,
we
they overproduce. That's what we've done. It's like how we bred turkeys and
overproduce milk.
chickens milk. It's
Now
it's like
I
how
know
we
we keep
bred
them pregnant.
turkeys and chickens to have breasts that are too big, so they can't properly
Mhm.
breed with one another.
Yeah.
We've altered a lot of animals that way for just consumption,
Okay.
basically.
I've just never heard of any of the elements of breeding has led to um the milk source not drying up like every other mammal. I would believe it. I've just
It's
never
not that
heard
it
of it.
doesn't dry up, it's that while they're producing, they overproduce. And if you don't milk
Hmm.
them properly, it can clog up the teats. It can cause infections. It can
Hmm.
cause a lot of issues. Like they can get pus on their udders and it can make them really, really sick. My
Hmm.
aunt's been working for a vet's office out in Gainesville for about 22 years, and their
Hmm.
vet goes out to farms and stuff. That's a really important thing with
Gotcha.
dairy cows because of like what we've done to dairy cows. Like they
Gotcha.
used to be a lot smaller and they used to look more
Hmm.
like ox,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
now they're these massive creatures that
Yeah.
overproduce milk and
Well,
they have way too much meat on their bones.
well, how about this? I'll look it up on my own, but if you find the source for that milking thing,
Mhm.
if you could send it to me, I'll put it.
I'll see if my aunt can shoot me anything about that because she'd probably have more on hand than I do.
Okay. I'll put it in the descriptions. I'll add it to the video whenever I get it from you. But yeah, I would say anybody that has any care to cut back on at least the factory farming element, cut back on dairy if you can. And then also not that it stops the harm from happening, but look for milk that says like grass fed or whatever. Look for hormone
Mhm.
free, like focus on
If
the shift of
what
making the
the
change.
best thing that you can do is try to find brands that do proper animal husbandry and
Mm,
I believe that's the right word, and do like
so,
holistic farming
yeah.
because that's where like I worked on a farm for a little while when I was in high school over a summer. I worked with longhorn cattle
Hmm.
because I was in Texas and I worked on a farm that bred the cattle for Texas A&M. We've done so much to cattle that just
Hmm.
hurts them. Like
Yeah.
longhorns did not naturally have 12-foot wide horns. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like they
hmm.
hurt themselves because of how big those horns are.
Yeah.
But the best thing you can do if you're looking to reduce harm like that is try to do research on brands and farm sources and try to find brands that only come from holistic sources where the cows are properly cared for and they're fed in pasture, things like that. It's going to be a lot
Hmm.
more expensive, but
Hmm.
if you can afford it, like if I could afford it, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Just because like I'm pretty consequentialist about things. Like
Hmm.
my whole worldview is around harm reduction.
Hmm.
So, if you can reduce harm for people, for animals, go for it. If you can't afford it, I don't, no shame. But if you can, go for it. You know,
Yeah. We
it,
should do
it's
the
it,
best we
it
can
can
and
take
work
a fair
towards
bit of
change.
research, but
Yeah.
if you can manage it, you should.
Yeah, do the best we can, work towards change. Like I don't have to drink coffee, but I happen to love it. Um, I I as soon as I thought about this element of wasting all the plastic cups when I'd go to Starbucks because I fell in love with the Starbucks
Mhm.
Nitro coffee, um, I I decided, okay, I'm gonna start taking my own mugs in. So I take this mug.
Yeah.
This mug says happy. And it actually makes me happy. When I see the word happy, it's kind of like if you smile, you feel good. And if you see a smile, you feel good. I actually feel
It's a
so good
psychosomatic
seeing
thing.
this word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But anyways, I take this in and they would put my coffee in there and I didn't waste that plastic. I don't want to get too into the thoughts of plastics right now, but every little bit we can do. And every
Plastics are
once in a while,
super devastating to the
yeah.
environment. Yeah.
But like every once in a while, I want to go get a coffee. I don't have my cup, and I get it. I don't want to think of myself as a horrible person. I don't want to think I have to be perfect in everything. So I do it. And the same thing, you might eat your cheese, but we should just constantly be trying to do the best we can. And I don't know if we should
Hmm.
justify the bad we do, but I don't think we would live good lives if at this very second we all like got insanely militant on ourselves. So let's just and you'd give up if you try too many things right away, you give up. So do
The
what will
biggest
actually
barrier
work.
on people trying to do like holistic living like that, the biggest barrier is money because
Hmm,
it's harder and more expensive to raise cattle and goats and things like that in a real
yeah,
holistic way than it is factory farming. There's more
for sure.
profit in that. So there's a lot more
Well,
brands that work with
the
that.
government giving subsidies to factory farms, that's something we should
That
fight
too.
as well. But hey, I gotta hop
Yeah.
off here, but it's great talking to you like always. You have a good
Yeah.
one, man. All
You
right,
too.
take care.